Welcome along, my aspiring allies, and thank you for joining me on this most recent episode of the Speaking of Inclusion podcast. Today, I am joined by Shannon Malone-deBenedictis, and Shannon is a two-time Emmy award-winning filmmaker, certified story coach, and the founder of Padlin Creative, where she helps women harness the power of storytelling to lead with impact. Now, aside from her glittering career making documentaries with the likes of Disney Plus, Netflix, National Geographic, and Discovery, she also took the time out to come and talk to me about her new venture, which is helping women look at themselves in a different way and show up fully unapologetic. And she will tell us what that means to her in this episode. We also do dig into one of the topics that really does affect women, certainly in the workplace and in society. And that's the topic of our weight. So we talked all about what it is like to be a heavy person, to be overweight or fat, quite frankly. And we talked about fat shaming and how it shows up in all its full glory in many, many aspects of our life. Now, I do want to call out at this point, we are here for everybody of all sizes, but this is just a conversation that we think is not being had enough. And we want to be having this conversation more, whether it is in the workplace, in society, and examining the biases that we have, and we all do, when it comes to judging people on their size and shape and the way that they look. So, you know the drill. Please sit back, relax, and get comfortable in whichever way works best for you. And please welcome Shannon Malone-deBenedictis to the Speaking of Inclusion podcast.
I'm good. It's just winter has shown up here in DC, so it's gone from being, seasonally cold to just very cold. So just very cold. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit chilly here as well. Actually, we're in the UK, but it's usual British weather. It's grey, right?
It's I remember once going to London and I had a bright red trench coat I was wearing. And I mean, I stood out like some weird like 1950s art house film. It was so funny. It was absolutely funny.
Did you
Yeah.
not get the beige memo?
I didn't get the beige gray memo. I did not get that memo. And I was like, oh, wow, look at me. I am standing out, completely standing out. Yeah.
Good for you, though. That's nice.
Well,
Yeah.
that's part of what we'll talk about is one of the things that when I got to a certain age, I said, I'm going to stop wearing black all the time. That was it. I'm
Absolutely.
going to wear what I
Yeah.
want to wear. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, that's just reminded me that it was I was having a conversation with someone just before this call, and they were talking about how they kind of hit perimenopause and all the rails came off, and they're like, I don't care anymore. I just don't
Don't
care.
care.
And
Don't.
and I
Yeah.
said I was talking to someone else about that, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. No, I remember the line Kristen Scott Thomas says at the end of Four Weddings and a Funeral. I'm all the color of the rainbow and more. It's like when she gets over her crush of Hugh Grant and the whole deal.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that line. I thought that line just really kind of spoke. It spoke to me and spoke to a lot of, I thought a lot of like what the pressures we deal with and what she was kind of dealing with. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, I hadn't even remembered that. Yeah, that's exactly that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
more.
And more. And more.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
good. You have
right.
tea. I have coffee. Good. We're good. Okay.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I love your mug as well.
Yeah. It represents what I'm doing. Most important thing. I love it. I love it. I had a really good time listening to your podcast. I particularly liked um the woman who was neurodiverse, who
Is
was
that
taught.
Charlie Hart?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I really enjoyed that because it's I thought what she had to say is good, and I think it's recognizing workspaces and different people's abilities and different people's approaches um is if applied appropriately and done appropriately and accommodating in a way can be incredible asset to business. And I say this as when I worked at National Geographic, there were at least two lawyers in the legal department who were definitely on the spectrum in some capacity. Very difficult in many ways. It was not easy to work with them on a social level. But when it came to contract negotiations, holy cow, not a word got by them.
Yeah. They know their thing and they know it inside out.
Inside out. They were relentless on contract negotiations because they were completely invested in it. And I went,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, there we go.
That's it.
So
And yeah, no, and it's so true. And this for me, I think is the importance of having these types of conversations
hmm
because it is about recognizing, isn't it? Like we are all individuals and we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. We just have to be in a space where those things are not just accepted or
Yeah.
tolerated, but celebrated and seen.
Yeah.
And then the reverse is that we're not then judged for the
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
The appearances that people might think they understand when
Hmm.
actually they just, we just don't know each other that well because we didn't try to get to know each other.
Make those connections.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Love, love, love. Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate that. I love that you've been listening as well. I said to someone as well today, I was like, I forget people listen, which is so stupid because that's the whole point that I make this podcast is because I want people to listen. And then I'm surprised when people say, oh, I was listening to this
Oh
episode.
no,
And I'm like,
people say that all the
oh,
time.
yeah.
I watched the show of yours. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, the one that was on last week. I'm like, oh right, something was airing. Yeah, right. Somebody watches this. Okay, yeah. And part of it is like still not fully, I've been in it for 25 years and I'm like, wait, what do I do? Wow, I can't believe I do that. That's crazy. I can't believe that that's part of my life. But also being the way most of us who do this, when that project's done, it's it's gone. We literally put it out of our brains so we can move on to the next project. And so it's like I remember once someone saying to me, "I watched that documentary of yours." I'm like, you got to give me more." And they're like, "It was on Science Channel." I'm like, "You got to give me more." They're like, "It was on space." I'm like, "Keep going, just keep going." And finally, I was like, "Oh, the sun. Yeah, thanks. I remember that one. Yeah, okay." So yeah, we do that. So, but yeah, no, I enjoy listening to them. I think it's good to get an idea of the tone and what you like, and want to make sure that this is works for you, and I'm doing what needs to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, awesome stuff. And I think that segues us in beautifully, doesn't it, really, into kind of understanding who you are and what you do. Because like you say, for many, many years, it was is it non-fiction documentaries? Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yeah, it's nonfiction television, nonfiction documentaries. So when you're on for the UK Channel 4, BBC, I think BBC Two, is that the one who does mostly the documentaries? It's the nonfiction content that comes in either half hour, 1 hour formats, or occasionally the 2 hour formats, and in a wide range of subjects.
Yeah, yeah. And you already mentioned there, so like things like National Geographic. So it's like, and you would when you said that in my head, it just went clang.
I forget about the yellow box. It's funny because people bring it up and they're like, "Oh, you worked at National Geographic," but I've worked for National Geographic, WB Discovery, Netflix, Smithsonian Channel, Viacom. I even did I worked for Sesame Studios. Squee, I worked with Elmo briefly, and those were
Why is
all.
that? That is exciting. Like
Oh,
all of a
it's like
sudden, I'm like,
Elmo! I get to work with Elmo. And it was Elmo and puppies, which is even like squee, that it was
that's a
that was
day at
perfect.
work.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And I was on the set working with my producer, and I have a special skill of making all the puppies fall asleep at the exact same time. And they're like, "You're the puppy whisperer." I'm like, "It's good to be good at something." Yes, yes, I'm a
I
puppy
found my
whisperer.
calling.
I
Leave
found my
me to my
calling.
puppies.
Yeah. But all those channels and all those outlets have programming that is nonfiction. I'm telling the truth. I'm profiling historical event. I'm talking about animals, etc. So that's
Yeah.
when I say nonfiction filmmaker.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I love that. And I also know as well from our previous chat, like I didn't just wake up knowing this. Like I've been stalking you behind the scenes. But I also then therefore know about you, and that your kind of experiences within those industries as well have whilst been amazing, getting to do all that great work, have I'm sure wonderful experiences and tap into your own creativity and passions,
Mhm.
but they've also been kind of challenging in places, right?
It's been challenging in a perspective that I think is not experienced by a lot of people. I have been heavy my whole life. I don't remember a time when I wasn't heavy.
Mm.
I love the phrase, I was a husky kid. Husky, such a interesting word to use about describing
Be.
people and children, husky. And so that has been part of my life and my life experiences. So when I moved into television, when I moved into something that even in the nonfiction side is just media in general is very image conscious. And slowly I started to look around and realize I would go into rooms, I'd go into meetings or and especially the higher levels I went, I was seeing less and less women who look like me. Note, I say women. Very rarely did I see a woman over the size 8. And when you notice that, you try not to, but when you notice that, you feel isolated, you feel alone, you feel like you're standing out. And there were things I tried to do to compensate for, and there were things I didn't recognize that I should have compensated for it.
Mm, so immediately there are so many things there, and I also have to apologize because my cat has started yowling because
That's okay.
she seems to understand that when I've hit record, that's like her calling,
Of course.
literally. But hopefully, I think Zoom's going to dampen it. But sorry about that. So yeah, so many things that, and immediately so women like me, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so let's unpack that little bit because that
Yeah.
that feels poignant.
Hmm. Yeah. I, the societal standards of our genders, our sexes are, yeah, they've been around. And as women enter the workplace, you see, I think back to the 70s and the 80s, that the appropriate attire that was supposed to be worn was the business suit. So it was women had to dress as much like men as possible, but at the same time, wear heels, be thin, be all the perfection of what a woman is supposed to be. I love talking about that in the movie Working Girl, the classic Mike Nichols film, that here was Melanie Griffith trying to fit into this world and she's wearing business clothes. And here was Sigourney Weaver, the supposed villain, which she was a villain in the end, but she shows up at a cocktail party wearing a stunning red dress. She is being herself. She is being, making a statement, and she's the villain because she's not fitting in. She's not conforming. And that's always stuck with me. So as I grew, as I got older and I grew in my career, I would look around and I'd start noticing this. I'd start noticing that there were men who were gaining weight as they hit middle age, as they had, with fatherhood, as things became more stressed. I'd see people in the C-suites men who were, pretty much obese, but there wasn't the same commentary. There wasn't the same criticism that you would hear in the halls or hear whispering about someone came back from maternity leave. Oh, she didn't take off the weight. Well, she's looking kind of bad. She's looking great. Is she okay? Is this going to happen? Is she, is she going to keep the weight on? Didn't really see that type of attitude or that type of whispering happening towards men. And in fact, it was for many situations I saw that the higher that women would go in the executive climb, they became even more polished, even more into this perceived look of what they're supposed to be. And like I said, I've been heavy my whole life, and I'm one of 3 kids. My sister and I were heavy. My brother had the nickname Bones because he was rail thin. We ate the same diet. We worked out, we played sports. We did everything the exact same. So it doesn't take a scientist to go, wait, something's different here. There's a metabolic or a biological difference here.
Yeah.
And so when you're feeling that pressure all the time, you do things that protect yourself when you're heavy. I was just reading a thread on social media that talked about that large people are excellent at trying to make themselves small. We've been told our entire life that we need to make ourselves small in every public space possible. Um, uh, Turnstiles are, for used to just bring anxiety to me and different things. But I found that at times I was making myself in conference rooms, in meetings, in um, mixers, in things that were meant to bolster my career. But that ingrained lesson, that ingrained voice in my head was saying, be small, don't be too loud, don't wear bright clothes, don't stand out, do everything you can to make yourself small
Yeah.
because you're big. And that doesn't benefit anyone.
Oh gosh, I really hear that. And even in that, there's so much, isn't there? Because there's that again, that double uh sidedness. That's not really a term, is it? I'm sure there's a proper term that someone else without a menopause brain will remind me of. But like the double edge where, as women, we are not encouraged to take up space anyway. And like you say, and then when you're heavier, that's that feeling that, well, I'm already taking up space. I shouldn't be taking up because I'm also a woman. And then like having to hide. And as you were saying that, I was thinking it's interesting, isn't it, that the standard that society sets that we're supposed to fit into, and then we said the perfection, like perfectionism is such a problem just generally, but then it's like, whose ideal is it that we're trying to conform with, because someone somewhere created the beauty standard, and that's the thing that we're all trying to fall in line with. And interesting, I've just restarted watching Mad Men again,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh yeah, this,
Yeah.
yeah, and it really brought it all back home again. It's just like, yeah, this is it. This is the battle that we're up against, that huge double standard. But then there's that piece, isn't there, around like, how do you fight against the fact that your credibility is being called into question based upon absolutely nothing that to do with your actual capability to do your role. It's just a judgment that someone is making about your credibility based upon your physical shape.
Hmm.
And then when you're, like you say, you're carrying, literally carrying the weight of society, and trying to hide, and that bleeds into your working life. Whereas, like you say, I'm good at my job. I should be shiny. I should be standing out. I should be being looked at for the reasons of, here comes Shannon. Gee, she is incredible at what she does. We need to have a chat with her. And you're there kind of like hugging the wall and, like you say, literally trying to blend into the shadows because you're like, oh, don't let me stand out. Don't look at me.
Yeah. I, I like that you brought that fact up of like you have this incredible talent or the things you're really good at and things that you should feel really proud about your ability to do. And for a company, that should be recognized as they're a problem solver, they're a go-getter, they're this, there's someone I can do that. But if you're holding yourself back of expressing what you're good at because you've been told to be quiet, you've been told to make yourself small, you've been told that you're going to be judged immediately for how you look, so it doesn't matter what you say, you're undermining your capabilities and your success. And I don't want to make it, I want to make clear, I'm not putting the blame on that person. This is
Mm-hmm.
just societal pressures that we learn to deal with.
Yeah.
And one of the things I talk about and I lead workshops and things called fully unapologetic. It's, stop apologizing and be your great self, be your most positive self and let yourself shine is is if we take that energy that we spend so often about apologizing for, I'm too fat, I'm my hair isn't pretty enough, I'm not dressed right. I might be too loud. I might be too this, that. If we took all that energy, calmed those voices in our head, and then took that energy and turned it positive to, I can solve this problem. I can be a success. I can be the asset that the company needs. I can be someone who's relied on. How much better everything would be. And one of you brought up a really good point about, being heavy and you should be recognize this for your UK listeners. We had a president here in the United States, William Henry Taft. He was around the turn of the early 20th century. And this was a man who was a ambassador to Philippines. He was, I think, the Secretary of Trade. He was the very close colleague to the President Teddy Roosevelt. He became president of the United States himself. He then became the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, a loving husband and father, and lived to the age of 72. And yet anything anybody talks about is how fat he was.
Right.
And the question I want people to ask themselves when they think about that is, what more would you have liked President William Howard Taft to do? Is
Mm-hmm.
that the thing? It's like, oh my God, if he had only been thin, he could have been such a bigger success in life. It's kind of ridiculous when you kind of think of those
Yeah.
terms. And so that's the conversation I want to remove. Like, just take that out.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
literally no more room on his CV for anything else to have happened. Like,
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine what Winston Churchill could have accomplished if he hadn't been fat? You're like, what? Come on. It just
yeah,
doesn't make sense in the conversation. And when you acknowledge that, you realize these are cultural biases that have been put in. These are things that have been ingrained in us since our childhood for generations, and it comes from, especially here in America, it comes from racism, it comes from classism, it comes from these ingrained things of a way for people to feel superior to others, and it's not based by science, is not backed up by any of that. So
yeah.
once you acknowledge that and let people be their best self and don't worry about that, I think you'll have better success.
100%. And it's interesting actually you were saying that, because it's as humans we're just fantastically creative at coming up with other ways to control one another and to suppress one another, usually for our own gain, right? And I find that just absolutely fascinating that why what well, again, as you say, we know why: racism, sexism, capitalism, all of it, the patriarchy, we've got the trifecta, right? But actually then there is something that, well, these systems are working exactly in the way that they were designed, because we're constantly in this internal battle for preservation of self living within the system, and also wanting to like be ourselves, which may not fit within the system. And it's almost as if, yeah, but if we all, what would happen if we were all just able to show up and be excellent at the things that we are excellent at? Like, that is inherently destabilizing for those systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like, interesting. Like, there is also got to be some fear somewhere that, well, actually, if we do create an environment where someone could just be truly excellent, regardless of what they look like or who they were in love with, or whatever, like, it's it feels utopian.
It, I hope it's not that not that impossible. I
I
think
mean, it feels nonsensical, but why would we not be doing it? And also, why does it feel so far out of reach?
yeah, why does it? Why does it feel so far out of reach? Why does it cause so many waves in our world that Nicole Coughlin's plot line in Bridgerton and her finally hooking up with whatever Bridgerton got kid that was, how could he fall in love with her? And it's like, she's adorable, she's smart, she's funny, she's beautiful, all those things, but she's chubby. It's like, no, no, actually she's
I
not.
mean, she's really not. Yeah.
She's really not, everybody. It's she isn't, but this is kind of what we've been told of: you look like A, you don't deserve B.
Mm-hmm.
And that's horribly cruel.
Yeah.
And it's a and like you said, where it's born from. So could it be a utopian idea that we feel this and we do this? I'd like to think that it could happen, but I think that the way we can that if we could just make it better and
Mm.
acknowledge that as human beings with fully developed brains, and part of those brains that do make us more intelligent than other highly intelligent animals is the ability to empathize and the ability to do more critical thinking.
Mm.
We all have inherent biases. We do. We have reflex actions, reflex things of, oh, or you think that thing. But it's when you stop and go, wait, nope, stop it, brain. You're not being fair. You're not being a good person. Stop. That, if we can get to that, recognize that we have these inherent biases, that we have these things, these um, initial, not to equate humans with this, but like, I'm fearful of snakes. I fully admit that. And that's also cultural, by the way. That comes down through history and through writings and whatnot. Um, but I've learned more about them and realized, no. Same thing with sharks. I've done so many shark programs, so many. And We have been taught to fear them because, yes, they dominate the ocean. But then let's put our logical head on. Let's put on what we've learned, that we have so much information out there to learn, and realize they really don't care about us. They don't care about us in the slightest. We're not part of their worldview. So it's fine. We don't have to fear them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to imagine so long as I'm not like mucking about in a shark's face, it's probably it's gonna not, yeah, like you say, it doesn't acknowledge me.
Yeah, if you muck about anybody's face, you probably
Yeah,
deserve to
fine.
be punched.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, that's probably the
yeah, yeah.
case.
But there are also, I mean, there are some, but like you say, these kind of fears are passed down. They are kind of in our genes, aren't they? Almost these kind of fight, flight, fear responses. And but it's interesting is that we could kind of argue, well, fears of heights feel kind of rational because like, but it's not really the height that we're scared of, it's the falling to our death bit at the bottom that is the bit that we're not necessarily drawn to, I would imagine. So there's, at least there is some kind of logic in there, and like, actually a shark could kill me, but do you know what, I'll not swim with them and I'm good. And then these other biases are, well, actually, the biases around like fat people, like
Yeah,
honestly, like where what
yeah,
which defense mechanism is that helping me with, like,
yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, those, I mean, those biases, when you think back where they come from, where are they, and you ask someone when they have a fat bias, um, why do you think that way? What is it? Well, that's all I've heard. No, go dig. Thing called Google. Go ahead, Google it, go look. And then you get into the root of it and you find out usually it's their mother, their father put that put that seed in their brain. Maybe they were young and they were a tween and they were made fun of and they thought this was the only way to get. And you get into and you find out that it's this little kind of poisonous seed that's been planted. And part of that is like, okay, let's get back to rational. Let's get back to thinking about it. Let's look at really what the reality is. And one of the thing that kind of made me be much more vocal and open about this was a recognition. I've had the same, I'm 55. I have had the same best friend since kindergarten. Um, we are she's basically a sister at this point, right? And for a period of time in our 20s, we lived together. We were flatmates. And I was really, really upset because I was like, oh my God, I'm so fat, I can't do this. And she is, we joke that I'm Winnie the Pooh to her Piglet because she is 5'1" and weighs maybe like, 105, right? Um, and she's like, damn it, Shannon, I live with you. I see what you eat. You don't, you don't overeat. She goes, you eat the same diet I do, and you just gain weight. She goes, this is not you. This isn't your problem. And it was finally someone acknowledging who had been there, who was experienced, just saying, you personally are not the issue. There's something else going on here. It's either this is the way your body is, this is who you are, or there's a medical issue going on there. And and it took 10 years actually to discover that indeed I've had a thyroid problem almost my entire life. But okay, that's who I am. So I think that type of acknowledgement, when you get past that negative seed that's been planted from the very beginning, because I know when I was young, I was told constantly that because I was fat, I probably wouldn't succeed at work. I would never find love, that I couldn't never be viewed as being lazy, that lazy was the worst thing to be called ever. And so those are all those voices in my head and realizing, wait a minute. I have this sticker on my computer from this incredible UK artist, Katie Abbey, and it's from the Mental Health Mallard. And I'm going to use profanity briefly here if you want to bleep me. It's a gentle reminder that sometimes your brain can be a lying piece of shit. Yes. And it's because of those little dark poisonous seeds that are planted when you grow up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I love that you've called that out, because actually I don't think there is anybody who's not had either a parent or someone say, oh, don't eat too much of that, you'll get fat, like, as if like it's the threat, isn't it? We're threatened with it, um framing it completely as, well, that's a bad thing. So, and actually I also want to come out, in support of, there'll be a lot of people out there who maybe don't have great diets, who do overeat. And I'm like, do you know what? If that's their choice, who am I to judge somebody? Like, they are a human person and they're allowed to do what they want. And if they are happy and healthy and doing whatever it is that works for them, good. Like,
Hmm.
and that's another thing, isn't it? Is that we we are more forgiving for people who are overweight trying to lose weight, or overweight with a reason for being, like, oh, that makes sense then. Whereas actually, like, someone has still got the same worth, the same value, the same skills, the same capacities, capabilities. Maybe they just want to eat cake.
Maybe they
Like,
just want to eat cake. And someone said there was something going around where it's like thin doesn't thin tastes better than food.
I
There
think
was
that's
something like,
is that the Kate Moss? Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels.
yeah, that's exactly it. And it was
Yeah,
like, have you had like a really good sunrise cake from Norway? Have you had like an amazing gelato off the streets of Florence? That's part of living. That's part of
yeah,
experiencing cultures and doing that. So this idea of this thing that not only sustains you, but is also part of the wonderful joy of being live, you need to withhold yourself from it because society has told you you need to weigh 102 pounds.
yeah. You don't deserve the joy.
No.
You're overweight, no joy for you. Like,
Well, I
what?
I have a philosophy that women, you were talking about Mad Men. I have
Yeah.
a philosophy. I'm probably wrong, and I hope your viewers get angry about this, but I mean, it would be fun.
Let's do
Is
it.
like that women from older generations, when they got old, they were in really bad moods. And it was because one, they were hungry all the time, and two, they were wearing high heels all the time. And so their feet hurt all the time. And if
Yeah,
you're in pain and hungry all the time, of course you're going to be cranky. Yes,
yeah,
you're going to be cranky. But is that worth it? Is that to fit some type of standard that honestly doesn't make you your most confident self? Now, look, I'm not saying that you should wear pajamas to the office. I'm not saying that at all.
some people do, I'm sure.
Some people do. And look, we're on Zoom right now. Nobody has any idea if I'm wearing pajama bottoms or not, and
No.
that's okay.
But I am trying to work out if there are dogs on your jumper. So,
These are little, yeah, they're little Pomeranian dogs. They're little
right.
Pomeranian dogs. So,
Question
but
answered. Good.
I mean, there is something in terms of just, making everybody also feel a little bit comfortable. But if you're not comfortable with seeing a fat person in public, that's on you. This idea of being fat in public is promoting obesity. Come on, man. Come
Yeah,
on. You're just giving yourself permission to bully
yeah.
and to be cruel. That's it.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah, 100. And I think this is probably a really good time to kind of check in with ourselves, because I mean, you've already talked about the biases that we have, but, like, I don't know anyone. Well, I say about myself, I let other people couldn't be as honest as they wish, but I absolutely know there will have been times that I have judged people. I have made decisions about people based upon their size, their shape, and the kind of, what's the word, the automatic associations I will have made with that. And, like, we should be ashamed of ourselves for that, because you cannot know anything about a person based upon what you are seeing literally when you look at them. And even case in point around someone's health. I mean, when I do a lot of like weightlifting, and when you look at, like, Olympic weightlifters, like, they're not all
Oh,
skinny minis, right?
no. They're
They got
great.
size because
Yeah.
they can lift things 3 times their body weight, right?
Yeah.
You want to go and tell them they're not fit?
Yeah.
I think not.
Go tell those women rugby players that they're not fit, that they're fat. Go ahead, I
Yeah,
dare you. Yeah.
yeah, they'll chase you down and eat you, like,
Yeah. I mean,
just for fun.
we're in a time right now where we are in this incredible technological innovation, new revolution with AI, with computer programs that are going to be able to solve diseases, hopefully, and do all that. And yet we have all this manpower and all this ability to understand all this new technology, and you can't take a moment to check your brain and say maybe you're just clocking into internal biases that you have about fat people. No, I think you can. I think you can use that same kind of logic and same kind of critical thinking towards recognizing the biases you have. One of my, again, because I'm a filmmaker and TV film nerd. One of my all-time favorite movies is Kung Fu Panda. Um,
Oh,
Believe it or not, most of the stuff I love cartoons because I spend so much time in a documentary world that I look for some complete escapism on my personal life. But what I love about Kung Fu Panda is because Poe is the epitome of people taking the wrong assumptions about who he is and what he can do. You're nothing but a big, fat, lazy panda. And in reality, he's the golden warrior. He is the solution. He is all of those things and really loves dumplings. So it's that idea of those initial perceptions you put on something and then realize, wait a minute, you need to judge the person for who that person is and not let those things fall into place. Let those attitudes fall into place.
yeah, 100%, totally. Um, and something else, if I may, I was going to do a pivot, and I'm now
Yeah.
deciding which direction to pivot into.
Okay.
Um, I guess there are two things, so I'm going to see if one can lead into the other. So I know from our conversation before that actually there was a real shift for you. You said when you got into your 40s around like I'm just going to let a lot of this go. Like I'm carrying things, um, and I don't need to be carrying them. So what was the kind of the catalyst for that?
I had decided to leave the comfort of working at a network job and go out on my own and work for some small companies. And there was a certain coziness of working at a network job. It was, it was a corporate job, so you got annual bonuses and reviews and everything, but it really can hamstring you in your creativity. And I had been really fearful to step out on my own. And I was fearful because I was afraid of how I'd be judged and how I'd be looked at. But I hit a point in my 40s where early 40s, I said, you know what? No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the leap. So I made the leap. And at the same time, I, I said, you know what? I'm going to get really fit because now I wasn't in a corporate job. I could go work out 2 hours in a day. My hours were pretty flexible. And so in a period of about a year, I lost about 95 pounds. And I can't do the conversion. I don't know stones. So I got to what would probably be, it's 195 pounds in that measurement. And I was on a weight loss program, and I had been asked to be a model for the success of the weight loss program. So I showed up. I'm going to be a model. This is great. Oh my God, look at this. You know, and I just want to make it clear. So I'm 195 pounds. I'm like a size 16, but I am ripped. I have been boxing 3 times a week. I am just like super strong. And I showed up and was working with the director, and I was put in the background because I wasn't thin enough.
Hmm.
I still wasn't good enough. And that was it. The illusion was broken. It was why am I doing all this? Why am I hurting myself? Because I'm in my 40s, working out 3 times a week, boxing means pain and sore and aching all the time and
Yep.
all of that. Um, and I'm like, I am killing myself for something that I am never going to achieve. I am never going to be the societal standard. So screw it. I'm not going to try anymore. I'm going to be my best self, my most positive self, because I've spent so much of my life worrying about that, chasing that, trying to be small, trying to fit in, trying to do all of that. And here I was. I was still being put down. And I'm like, this is a race I don't want to run anymore. And that was my big turning point. That was my pivot. And I told myself, you know what? As long as I'm healthy, as long as I'm comfortable in who I am and comfortable in my body, I'm going to find my happiness. I'm going to find my confidence. And
Mm.
it was a big shift. And it ended up being a big shift in my career too, because I stopped hiding. And it wasn't just immediate, like suddenly one day, like, yay, look at me. It was baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. And it culminated to I was executive producer and development executive on Disney Plus's Secrets of the Whales with James Cameron and Sigourney Weaver. We got nominated for an Emmy. I went to the Primetime Emmy Awards and I was determined not to wear a black dress. Absolutely determined because my whole life I had been told I had to wear black to look thin. And so I found this beautiful gold sparkly dress and I wore it and we won and it matches the statue perfectly. And so that winning that Emmy was trust me was a big point in my life, but having the courage to wear that dress was also a huge moment in my life.
Can imagine that. In my head, I'm already just picturing you just like so proud and sparkly and like your full glory, like basking in the moment of the full glory in your full glory.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
you know, there were, as I looked around the audience, there were so many women dressed in all black. You know, of course, I think there was maybe only in the entire room of hundreds of people, I think there was only maybe a handful of other plus size women. But Nicole Byer, she's the host of Nailed It on Netflix, incredible comedian. She also happens to be plus size. She was wearing this incredibly fabulous big purple dress. It was awesome. And when I got up on stage for the for to accept the award with my team, I looked down at her. She was sitting in the front row, and I pointed at her, and I said, "I I love you. I love you." And she was like, "Oh, thank you," because here was another person who was unapologetically herself, and I loved it. I felt
Yeah.
solidarity. Yeah,
And how liberating is that, right?
it was. I
Yeah.
mean, liberating in that I still wore a whole bunch of Spanx because you gotta wear Spanx, you know.
See, okay, now just I'm going on a side quest now. I have an issue with Spanx,
Yeah,
right? In
yeah.
that if I'm going to wear something like that, I need it to be like from ankles to neck.
Yes.
Because otherwise you squidge out like weird sausage
Oh,
meat wherever
completely.
the
It's
edges
like,
of Spanx are, right?
yeah.
So if I've ever worn like the thigh ones, I end up with a weird like I don't know thigh ripple from where it
Oh,
all bulges out the bottom. I'm like I don't understand how to wear Spanx. I guess is my
well,
confession to the world. I
I
don't get it.
I don't understand where because like it's like you know those tubes you get that have like ready-made dough and you pop it and the thing
Yes.
goes it's like exactly it's like if you don't have everything completely wrapped up like a really tight sausage, you're going to have these parts bulging out. And you know, and then there's the, you know, bodysuits are back in. And I'm like, how do you go to the bathroom? You know,
Oh,
and this is again, when you get into perimenopausal, menopausal, like, look, you're going to have to go to the bathroom. I'm just going to warn you. It's going to happen. So
logistically, you've got to think your evening through, right?
you've got to completely figure out how you're going to do that. And, you know, but that's something Tina Fey, the comedian Tina Fey, she talked about hosting the Golden Globes. And I heard an interview with her and she talked about she had to wear two layers of Spanx to feel to wear the dress she wanted to wear. And I'm like, that sounds awful. Absolutely
How do
awful.
you breathe?
How do you breathe? I guess you don't, but gets back to my point that I feel like our grandmothers and our great grandmothers were just cranky all the time because they
Yeah.
couldn't breathe, they didn't eat, and their feet hurt. Yeah.
Mm. And I wonder as well how many of the kind of male award presenters are having these same conversations about their Spanx.
Yeah. Hmm.
Let that one hang in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and we're back, but then we're back to that's society, right? That's we look pretty for I don't know the benefit of who, but actually now it doesn't matter because we've internalized so much of that misogyny that we're just doing it to ourselves and to each other. You
Yeah.
know, like crap it all over the sisterhood because like even when we say we want to show up for each other, we're still judgy.
Oh, we're still judgy. We're still, and again, I think that is a little bit of heart of human nature, but we're smart enough. We're evolved enough
Mm,
to correct that voice in our brain.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, and so then you talked as well about so fully unapologetic. So is that was kind of what was then born out of your newfound sense of self and confidence, and like you were just like, do you know what? This is a state of being that we all need to be in.
It was. It was born. I have a blog and write essays for LinkedIn, and I wrote about my experience, and it received a lot of feedback, a lot of attention. And I looked around, and I looked on public speaking on stages, and I looked on in different types of workshop facilitations and things, and I didn't see anybody who looked like me. And I thought, why do I not see anybody who looks like me? And yet I know there's more me out there than not me. And so, like you said, I think we want to boost each other up. We want to help women recognize that voice in your head is lying. Here's where that voice came from. And when you can learn to kind of put those voices aside or tell them to just be quiet, or this is why the voice is speaking, you can put those energies into being happier, hopefully being more successful, being more productive, etc. So I started fully unapologetic. I give workshops, I do one-on-one coaching. And I don't like the word coaching, I like mentoring. Mentoring is I'm more of a teammate than I would say that I'm a coach or cheerleader. Um, uh, and give speeches about it using my experience as a television producer who's handled chaos, who's handled shark bites, who's handled pre-arrest warrants for my crew, who's handled everything, every type of conflict, while also being the lone fat woman in the room, of saying, look, these are some of the things and hurdles that you might face. Let's work on saying, like, no, you can get past this. You can be your best self.
Yeah, and that's quite some extreme examples of uh, of things to have had to handle, right?
Oh yeah, no, some of the things of, my favorite still is the preemptive arrest warrant on my crew. They hadn't committed the crime, but they thought someone was going to commit a crime. And so there was a preemptive arrest warrant in a country that I'm not going to name. And I'm
Mm,
like, how do I handle a preemptive
yeah.
minority
I was
report
gonna
type of
that's just
thing?
what I was gonna say. Is like you went full Minority
It
Report,
was
like
full minority report when I got the notice that there was an arrest warrant for something they hadn't done. And I'm going, okay, yeah,
I
that's
can't
a
prove a negative.
You
Like,
can't do that. You can't sure, no problem. No, I mean, so those types of things. And what it is when you're in those moments when you're handling problems or you're accepting an award or you've done a really good project, a really good lesson is to think about what emotions were you feeling at that time? What were you feeling? Were you feeling proud? Were you feeling confident? Were you feeling unstoppable? Channel those emotions and remember that, and don't let your physicality stop those emotions. Remember that where you were and how that is, because that is what you are. That is what you present, and that's what makes you successful.
I love that. And that is such rock solid advice. And it really resonates with me because I'm not a skinny person by any stretch. And I do a lot of public speaking and I love how I feel stood at the front of a room or on a stage, like engaging with the energy of an audience. Like I love all of that. And my world falls apart every time when I see the photos of or the videos of the event afterwards.
Yeah,
And I'm like, because in the moment when I'm me, I
yeah,
feel so good. And then when I have to look at what I look like, that old trigger pops back up,
yep,
society steps into my brain and almost erases all of the joy and energy and excitement and excellence that I had in that moment, and just reminds me to like, yeah, but you didn't look good, did you? And your hair was a bit shit. So it's like, why would I
yeah.
why am I doing that?
And that again, that's human nature. It makes sense, right? But then stop. I felt great in that
Yeah.
moment. I connected with the audience, and the audience, we had an understanding, and I came away feeling fabulous. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if that hair was out of
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
completely, it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
so, and you like, okay, and you remember that, and you take that picture and you keep it there, and you say, but I'm not going to go back to it. I'm not gonna dwell on it. I'm going to keep moving forward with this positive energy.
I love that. Yeah, remember the feeling, not the everything else that presents itself afterwards when all the
Yeah.
rubbish is stepped in, for sure. And something I was also thinking that was interesting around like being fully unapologetic. I was having a conversation with someone earlier about how very British we were, and we apologize. So she was talking about how she lives in Austria now, and she keeps getting told off by her wife because she apologizes when she bumps into when other people bump into her,
Yeah.
and then she'll apologize and she gets told off. And I was like, yeah, I'll apologize to my furniture, like if I bump into it, right? It's so built into us to just accept the blame for things, or to put ourselves on the side of, like, oh no, I must be the problem. It's a bit Taylor Swift, right? It's me, hi,
Yeah.
I'm the problem. And I find, and that's what we're trying to work with, isn't it? That's what we're up against.
Yeah, we're up against that. There's these cultural things that are put in that we're, like, again, English proper, you apologize for a lot. I'm Irish, not that much. Irish American,
Yeah.
but as women, we're
Yeah.
told to apologize all the time. And so one thing I talk to people about is look at emails that you sent in a business environment. Look at emails that you do. How many of your emails start with, I'm sorry for blank, or I think we should, or it's like all passive, oh, okay. And so I recommend just start on that basic thing of write the email, stop, go back, take out the passivity in the beginning.
I
Not, I
exactly
think
do
we
that.
should blah, blah, blah. Say, we should blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry you didn't get the email. Here's the email. I'm sorry, unless in a sales technique, sometimes you use that in a way to kind of initiate conversation. But for the most part, take out the passivity, take out the immediately what you're doing is you're setting yourself back. And this is, I highly recommend a book called Likeable Badass by Alison Fragale, Fragale. And she talks about that sometimes with women, and I said this is particularly, I see this with heavy women, we apologize for our size. We apologize for being big. We apologize for being loud. We apologize for laughing. We apologize
Mm.
for eating. We apologize for all these things. And what that does, it immediately makes us passive. It immediately puts us in a metaphorical corner because we're
Mm.
saying we're not strong enough to just make a direct statement. There's nothing rude about saying, instead of I think we should implement this, to say we should implement this, period. That's it. That's not rude. That's just saying this is what we're going to do. And so that's what I talk about in those fully unapologetic moments. It's we apologize all the time for things that we really don't need to apologize for. And when we start making those baby steps, we realize that we're putting forward our most confident self. And you know what's sexy and attractive and appealing? Confidence, real, genuine confidence, not bluster, not like chest beating, but
Mm.
just genuine confidence is incredibly appealing and attractive.
Yeah. So that lovely. What a brilliant. And I'll put a note of the book as well. So Alison Fragale was that?
Yeah,
Yep.
Likeable Badass. It's a
Likeable bad.
very good book, but it again, I noticed this because particularly, I work with women, I both one-on-one and in groups, and it's a lot of I'm sorry, I'm this, I'm that. It's like just trim that. Just it's okay. It's okay. Just I want to. Okay, let's do it.
Personal one that I do is I have to take my justs out.
Yep.
I just popping this over to you. It's just like, I'm just taking up some space, source for that. And yeah, I have to go back to the beginning of my emails and take all my just out. I am also the person that I'm quite blunt, and then I have to go back to the email and put something nice at the top, depending on who I'm speaking to. Like how was your weekend? Here's
Yeah.
the thing I need, rather than
Yeah.
just, hey Shannon, do this.
Yeah. Sometimes it's okay to package the, Oreo slash shit
Yeah.
sandwich. That's what you
Yeah.
have to do. But it can still be done confidently without
Oh
being
yeah.
passively. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
It depends on that's about knowing the person we're communicating with, though, isn't it? But we still don't need to be apologizing. We still don't need to be shoulding and justing and all of those other
No,
things.
and I think a good exercise for people to do is to look at the emails and how you interact with different people and see, are there trends? Do you find yourself more passive with maybe men than you find yourself with your female colleagues? How is it that you, and then look at how they interact with you and see if there's going to be a difference in terms of interacting with them. I've been working with an amazing team, mostly men. They are the most direct people in the world. I love it. It's just great. It's like, oh, and there's no feelings, there's no this or that. It's just, let's do it. Okay, love it. Great. No subtext. Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually then as an aside from that, um, if you're working with people who might be neurodivergent, then you're probably, certainly if we think about people with autism, you're more likely going to get more direct communication, which means it's going to be really appreciated going back as well without them having to like decode
Mm-hmm.
the subtext of the, you know, me putting the niceties at the front and all that kind of stuff, or the
Mm-hmm.
worry of making small talk. But then I was also thinking actually the unapologetic stuff, and maybe this is, maybe this isn't the right conversation for it, but I did then wonder what the impact of that was for example, people with ADHD who get rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And I'm like, ooh, that, because that's another layer, isn't it, of people who aren't taking up space, who haven't historically been included, and that is a real genuine response. So I mean, I'm not necessarily asking you to comment on that if that's not your area of specialism, but it's another thing to think about, right?
It is absolutely another thing to think about. And I think that sometimes, and it's, I'm not an expert on that, but I was just talking to someone about the process of giving feedback. And one thing about feedback is if feedback helps with growth, then it's not rejection. It's how you characterize it. It's how you phrase it, how you shape it. It's correcting someone on doing something to will help them become better is not a form of rejection. I think sometimes it's how we deliver information is can be skewed or taken the wrong way or interpreted the wrong way. So I think it's incumbent on managers and colleagues to understand what is the best way for the whole team to succeed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, totally. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So Shannon Malone-deBenedictis.
Yes. It's a mouthful. Yeah.
What a gorgeous name, though. It's melodic, is the word
It
I was
it
thinking.
is. It is. I married late. We're coming up on our will be 9 years in May. We married in our 40s, and I had already established my career. And my at that time 92-year-old father-in-law said, "You're taking our last name, right?" And I may be unapologetic, but there's no way I'm telling a 92-year-old man that I'm not going to do it.
There are some fights and we get to choose the battles, don't we, right?
That's exactly. It was not worth it. So Shannon Malone-deBenedictis. Yes.
So I can imagine that people are listening to this and they might want to know more about being a bit more fully unapologetic, or just hear more about you, or go and Google some of the documentaries and things that you have been a part of. So how can people find you or get in touch with you if they so wish?
Sure. My website is Padlin Creative, Padlin creative.com. That you can book a free consultation with me. You can also look at my portfolio and all the different projects I've worked on. And you can also find me on most social medias platforms, except TikTok. There's just too many. I just couldn't do TikTok. And if you're interested in fully unapologetic, there's a group on Facebook where different essays and commentary go.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm toying with the idea because I'm like, I feel like this is a really nice place to end, but I'm also conscious that there was something in me that really wanted to ask you about creatures who menopause, specifically whales. Um, and I wondered if, before I ask you if there's anything else that you want to say, if I could just
Yeah.
say, can you just give us a little snippet more about that? Because I think that's
Oh,
fascinating.
sure. Sure. So, one of the things that I've learned is that I've been in television filmmaking for 25 years, and the majority of my work has been in wildlife filmmaking, Secrets of the Whales, Planet Earth. I have one on right now called Saving Yellowstone, Penguin Town, etc. And what it has exposed me to is kind of the realities and also the myths of the animal kingdom. And one uh, myth is that females are just for making babies. That's it. But in higher intelligent species, including orcas and orangutans, um, Mother Nature, biology, has determined that women, after they have their menopause, continue to live on because they are the educators for the next generation. They are vital members of the pack, the pod, the clan, etc., to ensuring that that family line continues to grow as a nurturer, as a mentor, as a leader, etc. And this is particularly seen in orcas. Orca males, I think, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but they tend to live in their 30s and 40s. There are female orcas who have regularly lived into their 90s after experiencing menopause in their 30s and 40s. That's how important their role is. Nature has determined that menopausal women are essential to keeping our species alive. And I think that's a really important lesson for everybody to take.
You for sharing that. That was my personal indulgence, but I just wanted to have you share that because I just think it's illuminating. Gonna go with
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll let that sit with people and they can go and Google and find out more information if that has piqued their interest.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Shannon, is there anything else that you came to say that you have not had an opportunity to say?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. I'm glad that these conversations are happening. And as I said, I think the more we talk about this and the more we expose people to this and realize, look, you're really smart. Come on, use common sense, use logic. And we do that, we'll all be better for it.
Could not agree more. Shannon Malone-deBenedictis, thank you so much for joining me on the Speaking of Inclusion podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you.